All right. Good afternoon to those of us joining us from the Eastern time zone. Good morning to everybody farther west. My name is Jeff Gavio. I'm the Director of Marketing here at 3HTI. I'm joined by one of PTC's CAD applications engineers, Cody Wiltrout. And today's topic of conversation is going to be the interactive surface design extension in Creo, ISDX. And as some of you may know, that's one of the extensions that can help you combine the power of parametric modeling with the flexibility of freeform surfacing. So Cody's got a great overview and a demo planned for us today. He's going to kick that off in a few seconds here once everybody gets a chance to join the webinar. As we're going through today's overview, just a couple of notes. This is going to be recorded, and we'll distribute the link of the recording to everybody after the fact. So if you have to jump off early, or if there's other people on your team you'd like to share it with, you'll have access to that recording. If you have any questions during the session, feel free to use the chat box or raise your hand, and we'll address them once Cody runs through his overview and his demo. And we'll have a contact information thrown up at the end of the webinar as well, in case you have any further questions or you'd like more of a one-to-one demo or want to take the conversation offline to learn a little bit more about this extension and what it might be able to do for you and your organization. So with that said, I'll throw it over to Cody. Cody, take us away.
All right, thank you very much. And thank you everyone for attending today and joining us. As mentioned, I'm going to be taking us through an overview of ISDX, or Interactive Surface Design Extension. And if you have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. So starting off with a little bit of background on why PTC, and specifically with Creo, we've put a lot of effort into ISDX, is that surface modeling usually requires a pretty high degree of user skill and expertise. And users can struggle to create freeform surfaces using parametric surfacing techniques. But realistically, you need to be able to create those designs and evaluate really more conceptual designs earlier in the design process. And that's why we've created ISDX, to make that easier and more fluid and give you more capability in terms of doing your surface while making it both freeform and precise. So the unique design environment allows you to really improve productivity and make it more efficient for you when you're doing your surfacing. It has very advanced capabilities, allowing you to make freeform curves, but also look at whether something is tangent, whether you have acceleration to the curvature, set all of that how you want, and be able to do analysis around that curvature. And you can edit those freeform surfaces then just utilizing either lines or points, depending on the way that you're setting it up. And we'll walk through some of that in the demonstration. The users can create this from really any point in the design. So you can start early when you just have some art, maybe that's an art design that you want to start going off of. And it works with 2D and 3D imported geometries. So if you have any import geometry, you can build surfaces based off of that. So who's this really for? This is for all of your designers, anyone who's really starting off in the early aspects of your design process. Obviously, depending on what your company does, you might have some users who are more focused on surfacing than others, but the intent with this tool is really that anyone who uses Creo should be able to pick this up relatively easy. So you don't have to have someone who is a specialist just in surfacing to be able to utilize this. So that's really just a basic idea of what ISDX is all about, but I think everyone will get a much better understanding of the way this works if we take a look at it. So I'll go ahead and walk us through an example here today of how ISDX can be used. Now I'm going to start by just opening up one reference part that I'm going to be using here, or this little assembly. So this is going to be from a motorcycle that we're utilizing this handlebar cover. And we can see we have just a few lines set up, and then we have that metal piece in the center that we're going to be working around. But I want to bring in some art imagery that we're going to be utilizing based off of some pre-designed concepts that we have, and this is the direction we want to go. So I want to utilize this image in order to build out my design. And this is really where a lot of people might start. You have some basic art or some basic drawing design that you want to utilize, and we'll allow you to do that by importing in those pictures and then making sure that your curves are going to match to whatever that design view is. So we'll start with the front view and the top view, just so that we can get a view from both directions as we're going through and building out those curves. All you need to do is make sure that it's set aligned to whatever size it should be. And in this case, we can use that metal bar to make sure that they're fitting into the right shape there. So now that we have this image in here, we can go ahead and get started. I'm going to hide the metal bar so that we have a clearer view of the images that we're using here, and just come into style and say we want to start creating some style curves. Now my first curve, I can just start by setting a point and then adding as many points as I need to really define that curve. You can start very simply, or you can start pretty complex. I can look at the curvature analysis if I want to see the smoothness of that and the transition that it's taking at any point. And then I can always start adjusting this curve. I can add in additional points if I want. I can move it however I need to. What's also nice with ISDX is you get this 4 view that you can use. So we can see from the top, front, sides, all at the same time. And this really makes it easy as I transition this curve to make sure it's fitting from all directions to the art that we're looking at. So now from that top view, I can make sure it's coming out and aligning along that front picture, or the front surface of the top view of the picture. And at the same time, we can see in that bottom left-hand section there, we can see how it's going along in terms of the front of the front view picture here. So it makes it very easy for me to adjust my curves to match this art that we have from all the directions, all in one screen without having to set up views and toggle back and forth or anything like that. So it makes it very fast and easy. So that's our first example curve that we've created, but we're going to be creating quite a few more here throughout as we build out these services. But I'm going to start with doing the same thing along the bottom here, just create 3 points and use that to create my curve. Now, as you saw earlier, when I'm editing the curve, I can always add in additional points that I want that to toggle along. So we'll do the same thing here where we'll set up that 4 views, drag this out so that it's coming parallel to that front view of the top. And then I can start adding in additional points. So once I add in the point, set where I want that to be, and the curve will adjust along there. And again, as we have that curvature analysis, I can make sure that that's still smooth and that we're not going to have any problems with that. And you can add as many points as you need. So if you want, if you have a pretty complex shape and you need a lot of points to make sure that you're getting those smooth transitions throughout each of those, you can keep adding points, but this is really going to give you the flexibility to start simple and then continue to adjust as you need to. Now that we have those 2 basic curves set up, we're going to create a planar curve going between those. So this is going to be used to control as a control curve for how we're going to go between those 2 different initial curves that we created to create our first surface there across the center. I'm also going to create 2 new curves that are going to be normal to this. So it's going to make sure that it's normal to our curves, and I can adjust the position of that or add more of them as we need to. So I'll add a second one here, as well as adjust maybe the position of our first one here. And once we have these 3 control curves set up through that center, we're ready to build out our first surface here. So you can see how fast and easy this is so far with what we've been doing. Just bring in the art that you want to start with, or reference, or if you have any other 3D import geometry, bring all of that in and then start building lines off of that. And once you have those, say you want to make a surface off of it. So now we've got those references to those control lines, and we've got the first part of our surface. Next, we're going to work on the top section here. And I want to make sure that we have a smooth transition between this edge and the rest of the body. So I'm just going to start by putting in 2 simple lines, and we're going to use those to build out a surface on the edge first, and then control the transition between those edges and the centerpiece that we're going to be building. So we'll do that on both the right and left side, just simple 4 line section here to choose to build that out. So now that we have our 2 edges set up, we'll go ahead and start building curves across the center here that we're going to be using to actually build out the top curved surface here. And again, you can see that this is pretty easy for anyone to use as a designer. And we have all that capability in terms of being able to select and say, how do I want this to be? Do I want it to be tangent? Do I want curvature, acceleration, whatever it is? I can build that out quickly and easily. And the in-context menus are going to be very accurate to what you're doing. So that's something that we've been working with Creo for a while, is improving the pop-up menu so that you don't always have to be working out of the top menu. It makes it very easy to recognize what it is that you're doing and is context sensitive based on that. So that's going to save you some time and make that a little bit easier. Now that we have our curve set up, we can go ahead and start building this back surface here. So I'm going to start with the back piece that we're going to make. Once I have this one set up, I'm going to say that we want to take this one step further, where we're going to want a curvature in the center piece here. So I'm going to add one more control line and just run it through the center. But I'm going to add a little bit of a curve to that. So we'll just edit this and change this to have a little bit more of a curve for it. So we'll just add that center point and then drag it as we want. So now that we have that control curve set, we're ready to go ahead and create our second surface here across the top. And we can, again, set how we want that to be tangent to those other surfaces on the edge and add that control line in. And now we've got our top surface with that nice little shape to it. Going off of there, we're going to do the same thing along the bottom before we start bringing all of our surfaces together. So I'm going to start with that same type of idea where I want to control how this main section is going to be building out to the edge. So I'll start with just creating those 4 little sections that we can utilize. And right now we've been using, just selecting based off of these 4 lines that we've been setting up. But of course you could do a lofted curve or a sweep off of something to create those surfaces as well, depending on what it is that you're doing. And all of this is pretty easy to do. It doesn't require someone who's a surfacing expert. You can see it's just really utilizing those views and the lines that you already have set up to generate new lines, which are then used to fill in those surfaces. And then you'll see once we finish this last surface here, how we can start bringing all of that together and finalizing the creation of our part. So now that I have my curve starting to set up, we'll go back into the 4 views again, so I can make sure that this is clearly lining up along that bottom edge. And we'll add another point to the other side as well. And now that we've got this adjusted, fitting up nicely there, we'll make sure that it's fitting along that top or that bottom left view as well. And we're ready to start splitting this one as well into the 2 sections then that we want to build those surfaces off of. And just like we saw with the top, I'm going to go ahead and start with the back edge, where again, we'll just select those 4 curves. And once I've got this set and I can check the tangencies to make sure that's good, then we'll go ahead and add in that second controlling line again so that we can have a little bit of curvature there. So you can see that this process is very smooth, very straightforward, and doesn't take a lot of time or effort here. Just in the few minutes that I've been on the line with you all so far, we've managed to really build out basically all of the surfaces for this cover that we're going to be using for the handlebar, and doesn't take long at all. Just utilizing these capabilities with ISDX. So now that we have the tangency set up and that last piece set, and we're happy with that, we can select that control line again, or control curve, excuse me, again, and we're all good to go. So now that we have this basically built out, we can look at any of those individual pieces. In our case, we're going to say we want to take a review of this. We want to look at the reflection analysis, check and make sure that all the curves and transitions are smooth. And of course, once I'm happy with that, then we can move into saying, all right, now I want to really start building this out into the part based off the fact that I might be happy with this. So knowing that, I can go ahead and turn those images off since we no longer need them as references. So I'll just hide those images since we won't need them any longer. And we're going to go ahead and start combining these different surface sets that we've made. So we'll just come down and set this to quilt and then select the different surfaces and merge them together. So this is going to bring all of our quilts together and make it into one large surface that we can then take and solidify once we're done. Now, in this case, we have these little edges at the back that we might want to remove. So I've just made some simple extrude sections here and say I want anything that's inside of that to be removed and clean that up there. We can also start rounding off any of the edges that we might want. So if we want to clean that up a little bit, we can smooth this out, give easy transitions, anything like that. Now that we've got this all brought together as one piece, we are going to start shelling out geometry. And this is just based off of that metal piece that we had earlier. So just taking a cutout around the edge there to give it space to come in. And we have the last section here on the right-hand side, which is going to show where that rounded piece on the edge of the metal is. Again, just taking an outline of that. But in this case, I'm going to say I want to remove any material that would fit into there. So now that we have this all set, we can start rounding out more of the edges. And you can see we can have a lot of options here if we want to do a cordial round versus just a simple control round. You can adjust for each of those based on what you want, but there's a lot of options in terms of finishing off that surfacing and how you want the transitions to be, so that that's going to be smooth and you don't have any hard edges. Now that we've got that all set, we'll give it a thickness, and that's really going to take it from just being those quilts and that surface to being a full solid geometry here. So we now have the cover piece for that handlebar based just off of those images and that one other piece that we had, in this case being that metal center bar. And we can bring that back in and see how that all looks together. Now, what's also nice here is because of the way we've set this up, if at any point we need to make some adjustments, let's say this curve that this metal piece is based off of needs to be adjusted, because we built all of our other curves based off of that, as we make those adjustments, the rest of the geometry is going to change with that. So you don't have to worry about going back through and redoing everything from hand by there. And coming back to the top level model, we can see now those finished pieces in context of the assembly. So that's really what ISDX is all about at a high level, is being able to start with whatever it is you have, whether that be some simple reference geometry, maybe some images. Even if you don't have anything, you can just set up some planes and start creating curves between those planes. Utilize that 4D view to really, or 4 views to really get an idea of how those curves look in 3D space without having to continually rotate around any of those curves and adjust views. Gives you a nice look at all of that at the same time. Use that along with the flexibility to create and add points to build out any of those curves initially. You can use the analysis to look at the transitions. And then once you have your curves set up, start utilizing those to create your surfaces, generate your quilts, merge it all together and solidify it, and then do any little cleanup work to add rounds and chamfers or things of that nature, and utilize that in whatever products and designs it is that you're generating. So what I hope you all saw throughout the demonstration today is that this really does allow you to work faster, which means you can reduce the time that you're spending generating your designs, especially in the initial concepting phase. You can generate up a lot of ideas quickly. And this can also give you very precise curves. So even though this is very fast and easy to use and gives you a lot of freeform flexibility, you can see with the analysis capabilities and the transitions that you can set up that you can also have very precise curvature, which means you can design to a real price premium by making the best optimal surfaces and making that a very smooth, clean look. And all of that means that you can also help to reduce your product development costs by just giving that faster time, making those better products, not having to do as much rework. And then again, if you set it up similar to the way I did, where you're referencing some of that other geometry, even if you do need to make some changes, it's not a huge overhaul deal, because it's recognizing as you make those adjustments, how the rest of the model needs to be adjusted as well. So you don't have to go back and do a lot of rework. And all that means that you can have increased product quality and be more innovative with the way you're doing your designs and how you can incorporate some of those other things, such as artistic renderings, into that design process. So that's really what I wanted to go over today at a high level for ISDX and how it can help you to do your surfacing more quickly and easily and really expand it out to the entire team. At this time, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take those.
All right, thank you, Cody. That was great. Anybody in the attendees have any questions for Cody before we wrap up for the day? We'll give it a minute here in case anybody's typing in. All right, doesn't look like we have any questions coming in. So thank you again, Cody, for your time. Really appreciate the thorough overview. Really fascinating stuff here with this advanced surfacing capability that we have. And before we leave for the day, if you do have any follow-up questions, or if you would like a more detailed demo or want to discuss further in depth the capabilities of ISDX or any of the capabilities of Creo, here's our contact information for us here at 3HTI, our general info number, as well as my direct contact information. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions, and we'll do what we can to answer those questions for you. With that, we can all wrap up for the day, and everybody enjoy your Thursday. Watch for the recording to go out later today, and enjoy your weekend. Hopefully we'll see you all soon. Thanks.
Thanks for your time, everyone.